Well, as LSU fans, we're frustrated about the loss on Sunday night. Maybe some egos are bruised, concerned about what this team can do moving forward, hopeful that they can turn things around. Grambling this week, Mississippi State opens up SEC play in week 3. We know how we as LSU fans feel about the loss and feel about this team moving forward. But what's the Florida State perspective of the loss on Sunday night?
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, thank you for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check us out on YouTube as well. My name is Caroline Fenton, and I'm your host, as I am every single day, bringing you the latest with the LSU Tigers, game breakdowns, game previews, just the voice of you, of the fan. But I wanted to bring in some help today because as LSU fans, we always tend to look at things through a purple and gold perspective. I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. We let our emotions get the best of us, whether it's after a big loss or after a big win or really after any game. We can get too high and we can get too low. And I always try to check myself before I get too high or before I get too low. And after the game on Sunday night, it was a really sobering moment for me to see where this team is at. And it's not nearly as disciplined or, advanced from last season that I expected this team to look, given how much talent they're returning, given how much experience is truly on this team. But I figured we needed an outsider's perspective that was just as invested in the game on Sunday night than we were. So I have recruited Brian Smith, who was our official Locked On Recruiting Insider, but also the host of Locked On Seminoles. He is dialed in to Florida football, specifically the Florida State fan base. I wanted to recruit Brian to come in and tell me, what are we really should we be concerned about? What did Brian see on Sunday night that might just be something that LSU needs to fix before next week? And those are fixable things. And what might just be inherent issues with this football team? And joining Locked On LSU now, probably to say, I told you so, probably to rub it in my face. Yeah, I know. Brian Smith, Locked On's official recruiting insider and the host of Locked On Seminoles. Brian, take it easy on me because I still am a wounded puppy after the events of Sunday night's horrific second half performance from LSU and the absolute butt whooping the Noles put on my Tigers on Sunday.
I think everybody was surprised. I have friends that are Florida State fans, obviously living here covering the Noles, and I didn't have a single person tell me they thought Florida State was going to run away with it. Mm-hmm. Not one. Not even your buddy and mine, John Garcia, who's actually a Florida State fan. He thought LSU was going to win by 10. That's what he told me the day before the game.
They had the opportunity to win by 10. That opportunity was there, and they didn't take it.
Well, here are two stats. I still love you. You're great, but these stats are fact.
Yeah.
Here they go. What do you think LSU was on third downs without looking? Top of your head.
I did look, and it was disgusting. What was it, 3 for 10?
That is correct. And what were they on fourth down?
0 for 3.
Inside that, you could make the argument that one inside the 5, and I didn't have any problem with Brian going for it.
I didn't hate that in the red zone on that first drive, 4th and 1. I really didn't have a problem with it because I looked at it like you beat Alabama last year for being bold and making a risky 2-point conversion play. So I can't be mad at it just because it didn't work. You're not going to win against a team like Florida State just by kicking field goals. I get it. Pick up the points where you can. I didn't hate that first 4th and 1 call, but this going for it on 4th down the second time, I didn't agree with because the play call was stupid and they were stuffing you at the line of scrimmage all game long. So it felt like they didn't have a good feel for what this offense was able to do at the time. First one, I don't have a problem with. Suck that you weren't able to convert. Suck that Florida State gave you a fresh set of downs and you still weren't able to get in the end zone. The second fourth down call, I was like, stop it. Just get the points. The way that this game was going, you just had to pick up points wherever you could.
I don't know what LSU did wrong, because the one thing that I was completely confident in, besides Daniel's obviously a good player,
right,
is their offensive line returned 5 dudes. And I think Will Campbell is a first-round pick when his time comes.
Yeah.
That's a good start.
Mm-hmm.
But while FSU's D-line is good and their interior has a lot of size, LSU got no push. And it murdered them all game long because it was 2nd and 8, 2nd and 7, 2nd and 9. I don't care if it's Joe Montana in his prime. Long yardage is not what you want. And Daniels worked his magic a few times, but he wasn't exactly on either. He had some airmails and some other throws that were off. I just don't think they played very well. That's on them. I mean, we want to bitch at Brian Kelly and all that, and there's certainly plenty of blame to go around. LSU's players didn't meet my expectations either. I took crap this past week from Florida. Well, you're supposed to talk about just Florida State. Well, no, LSU's good. We need to talk about both teams.
Mm-hmm.
But they disappointed me, especially up front on the offensive line. And then no doubt the secondary. I know eventually that topic's going to come up. I called that out last week on your show, on my show. LSU fans were killing me on YouTube. There's crickets on my channel now from LSU fans, by the way.
But I'm disappointed in LSU fans for not acknowledging that that was a very clear and obvious weakness,
100%.
at least going into the season. Now, if the secondary came out there and played their butts off, then fine. I will eat crow. I can do that. But with the uncertainty and the transfer portal and all the new pieces, how was the secondary not an issue? But that's what I want to touch on now that you bring it up. Because I said this on my show earlier this week, that I knew the secondary was going to be an issue, at least a point of concern, maybe a weakness on the team, something that needed to get better week over week over week. Is there a single defensive back in the nation that can beat Keon Coleman one-on-one? Like, how angry am I really supposed to be, or disappointed am I supposed to be in the secondary when you're going up against a 6'7" receiver, a behemoth of a man?
Well, that's Johnny too. He was the bigger one. Coleman's the small one at 6'4",
but he's
215.
6'4".
Yeah, I know that. Johnny even dropped a couple balls, and he was wide open on those.
The first half, I was not impressed with Florida State's receivers.
No, but the second half, it was child's play.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much you can do against a quality throw and a quality receiver, but he's elite. To play against Major Burns, who I think is a really good safety, and he's going to get paid.
He had a good
I don't
game.
think he's a 10-year NFL guy, but he'll at least make the league for a year or two. He couldn't have played it any better, and it's 6 points for the Noles. Sometimes the other guy does better. Keon Coleman is going to be a first-team All-American. He had, 9 for 122 and 3? Something like that. I mean, he's a dude.
Mm-hmm.
And they just didn't have an answer for him. Deuce Chestnut plays hard. He had a pick. He tackles well, all those things. He might be 5'11". They just don't have anybody that's what I'm saying. Like, who on God's green earth that's not already in the NFL is going to consistently, I mean, you can win a rep, but consistently compete with Keon? There's not many.
And that's why I can't be too upset about it. Yes, I'm still concerned about the secondary. Yes, that's still going to be a weakness clearly for this team moving forward. But I can't argue with that. I can't argue with it, with Major Burns or any member of this LSU secondary that can't beat Keon Coleman. You simply just got out talented there. But I think for me, the concern defensively, yes, the secondary is a concern, but I knew that was going to be a concern. It just confirmed my concern. So great, add that to the list. The other thing defensively that really made me concerned was two things. One, Harold Perkins.
There it is.
Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like, hit quarterback, get ball. That's a Harold Perkins job. And it felt like they took away Superman's cape. And that's a coaching problem. That's not on Harold Perkins. That's a coaching decision.
I think Harold's good enough to play it, but Florida State's offensive line is veteran. We talked about that last week on your show, and they weren't going to let him be much of a factor. That was kind of their deal. At edge, you can run away from him, but on 3rd and 6, it's still 3rd and 6. And I just think he's better suited there. My guess is that LSU staff isn't happy about the depth at inside linebacker, and they always have edge guys. They still can rush the passer pretty good. That's not a problem.
Braden Swinson
Harold's
had a
still the
nice
best.
game last night.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
They've
looking
got
at their
guys.
stats. Like Guillory and those guys. Wingo is, holy crap, Wingo's really good.
Number
They have
18 for a
guys.
reason.
Yeah, but does Perkins play better in or out? It's out.
It's out, and it's obvious.
Yeah, they have a problem because I'm looking at their stats right now. Spates is really good.
Mhm.
They don't have another linebacker besides obviously Perkins, even close. How does that happen at LSU, by the way? That's a state that's always got linebackers. So I'm a little concerned there. They might have to figure something out because either going to move somebody or do something because Perkins, he's going to have to slowly transition back out, or he's going to have to get a lot better at playing inside linebacker. And that's a think position instead of a see ball, kill ball, as I like to say. So they could struggle against teams that can run the football or have a mobile quarterback.
I called it football malpractice, coaching malpractice. To do that with Harold Perkins. And I don't think that it's a coincidence. If you look at the 4 regular season losses in the Brian Kelly era, Florida State last year, Harold Perkins was on the sidelines. Tennessee last year, Harold Perkins was on the sidelines. Florida State this year, Harold Perkins wasn't doing what he does best. I don't think that that's a coincidence, that the games that you struggle in, the games that you fall short from, Harold Perkins is a non-factor in those games for some reason or another. And I want Harold Perkins to take that next step. And I think he can take that next step. I just don't know if that's on the inside. And I fear that this coaching staff is too far into the weeds or maybe too stubborn to acknowledge the fact that that's just not Harold Perkins' natural position. And fine, I'll give it time. I just don't know how much patience I truly have when I see the best defensive player in the country be a non-factor in the biggest game, one of the biggest games on your schedule this season.
I don't think I could have said it any better. And I'll add that you're probably far more patient than most of the people that I ran into at the tailgate yesterday before the game. I'm just going to leave. LSU fans were rather confident, but they also left rather early. So, yeah, it was just bad watching him because he literally, he made a few tackles and stuff. He didn't make a single play that was quote unquote impactful that changed the outcome.
No,
not one. And he's going to be a top 10 pick
as
an edge guy. I'm confident of that now. I'll go ahead and step forward on that. He might play some outside linebacker and not just rush at the NFL level playing a 3-4, but he's not an inside backer.
That is maybe a little bit of liquid confidence that you saw at the tailgate as well.
No comment on that. There was plenty.
A whole lot of that sometimes at LSU tailgates.
Yeah, you could smell it. But anyway.
Coming up next, I want to get into what we saw from LSU and Florida State on Saturday night, what Brian saw, what are legitimate points of concern for this team, and what might be some silver linings that we could take away from LSU's disgusting loss on Sunday night. We'll get into that coming up next. It's now time for your Game Changer of the Week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Much like Jaden Daniels, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually tastes good. Now, I know from a loss on Sunday night, it's tough to look at the good things, and I've got a full breakdown of Jaden Daniels on tomorrow's episode of Locked On LSU, but I think what Jaden Daniels showed us out there with his toughness is a game changer for this LSU football team. Now, there's a lot of things that need to be improved upon, but Jaden Daniels always keeps this team in the game offensively. Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game because they make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. They're full of flavor, unlike some other non-alcoholic beers that you might taste that taste more like water with kind of just a hint of beer. No, these non-alcoholic beers from Athletic Brewing beat out full-strength beers in global competitions. You can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you, or you can buy online at athleticbrewing.com. One of the best things about Athletic Brewing, no hangovers ever. So try it out. So first-time customers, you can use code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, to get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON, all one word, at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near Beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. Well, thanks again for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. Hey, college football season is here, and this season, Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On will go live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. College Football Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and go in depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every day. Find Locked On College Football Kickoff Live every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You won't want to miss it. Well, thanks again for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Brian Smith, Locked On's official recruiting insider and the host of Locked On Seminoles, is with us. Brian, I'm concerned about the secondary, and I'm going to be concerned about the secondary until the secondary gives me a reason to not be concerned. Third down defense was another area that was so frustrating in this game. You said it. It was what? Florida State converted on 9 of their 14 third downs.
64%.
And a lot of those third downs were third and long situations.
LSU oftentimes did their due diligence. Their D-line run stopping.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty good. They got wore out in the fourth quarter, but they were just on the field. Like in the second half, they were on the field the whole time. First half and then into early third quarter, they did pretty good. But man, I know Jordan can run around and he can do some things, but you know what Jordan was in the second half, Caroline? You know what his stats line were? 9 out of 10 and 3 touchdowns.
That's
9 out of 10. That doesn't count the rushing touchdown.
That makes me ill.
He carved them up like it wasn't the LSU Tigers, but the Southeastern Louisiana, whatever. Yeah, and it was bad.
The part of the frustrating part of that is that was just giving up. Like that was just throwing in the towel at a certain point. And that's on the coaching staff. And I get it. You're exhausted because the defense has been on the field, the entire game because they can't get off the field on third down and because the offense can't convert. But the element of giving up and how early I felt this team did it was a point of concern for me. But in terms of third down defense, from your perspective, is that an LSU defense problem or is Jordan Travis and this Florida State offense just that good? I think it could be a little bit of both.
It probably is. I think the majority of it's still LSU, though, because a lot of the receivers, and I watched the game on TV. I didn't go in to deal with the drunk fest, but it was guys wide open. Mm-hmm. Look, Jordan Travis is really good, but mediocre quarterbacks are going to hit a lot of those throws. And again, to your point, it was 3rd and 5, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. And guys are freaking wide open, and they're dropping 7 a lot of the time. That's miscommunication. That's a lack of talent. That's something. I'd need the overhead view to watch everything. You can't see it on the TV angle. But, there were guys wide. There were a few contested, like the touchdown that Keon made in the back of the end zone. But for the most part, those third downs moving down the field methodically, which just never happens against LSU on third and longs, they did it the entire second half. And LSU didn't look confident at all. Once we got to about the end of the third quarter, that, like you said, they were done. They were done.
And after, LSU couldn't, on that first drive, when they're in the red zone, they couldn't punch it in. I think I could feel maybe a little bit of defeatedness. And then once Deuce got the interception, it was a muffed punt. Then Florida State recovered it, and then it was the interception. I felt them get a little bit more energy, and then going into the half, you could feel a little bit more confidence, but they couldn't do anything more from there. And it's a concern. It's absolutely a concern. But I want to look at the offensive side of the ball, but we'll get into that coming up next. Some offensive concerns. What are legitimate concerns? What could be growing pains? We'll get into that with Brian coming up next. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get a $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So now's the time to join FanDuel, the app that is easy to use and you can be on everything. Spreads, players, props, futures. The NFL starts next week. Get those bets in. There is so much to offer on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season with an offer that you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, well, thanks again for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. Brian Smith, host of Locked On Seminoles, is with us. The offense. I expected Jaden Daniels, the offense as a whole, to look much more polished than they did. And look, Jaden Daniels, and that's one thing I've heard a lot of LSU fans blaming Jaden Daniels for this loss. I don't know what your perspective on that is, but I can't put any of this on Jaden Daniels. I mean, I think that Jaden Daniels gave this team the best opportunity to win. But I don't know if it was the play calling, offensive line, interior offensive line, just, collapsing, whether it was pass or run plays, dropped passes from the receivers. All of those just kind of culminated into being an offensive issue, but it looked like same stuff, different year from this LSU offense.
The biggest play beyond the fourth down they didn't score offensively in the first quarter. Remember the play where Jaden threw a tremendous pass over in the middle, and it wasn't like it was an easy throw. There was pretty good coverage by FSU. Lacey beats his guy, starts to turn up the field and drops the ball. He scores if he catches.
Hits him right in his hands.
Look, I know it's not the easiest play.
You need to catch that.
But that's the difference between playing for LSU and being a guy in the backyard. He's got to make that. He's a very talented player. He'd already proven that earlier in the ball game. If he catches that and scores, that change. Those are the differences in winning and losing just in sport. Like there's that moment that just sucks the life out of you.
Right.
That kind of play. LSU in 19, obviously, that's the ultimate barometer. Did they not have a play like that they made? I mean, they probably dropped 5 balls all year, but LSU over 3 on the fourth downs, that play, the muff punt, they shot themselves in the foot, and they did that despite the referees totally penalizing Florida State more. It was 6 penalties for 59 yards in the first half. LSU had 0.
Yeah.
They had all that, and they still gave it away in the second half. They found ways to screw it up. I don't know how mentally strong that offense is right now because they found ways to screw up over and over again. So offensive line's got to get better. That's the first thing. They got to be able to beat somebody right in the nose to make it easier for Jaden, and then they just can't drop balls or have stupid plays in the special teams. Can't do it.
It's the stupid plays in special teams. I think it's going to give me a heart attack. Like I have 911 on speed dial next game because you go to the transfer portal and you get a special teams dynamo in Aaron Anderson, and you get a new special teams coordinator, and you still can't field a punt. It's befuddling to me, but to your point, yeah, I don't want to take anything away from Florida State because Jordan Travis played out of his mind because Florida State has so much talent on both sides of the ball. I don't want to take anything away from their performance on Sunday night because Florida State looked like a college football playoff team. But LSU just didn't do anything to help themselves. They didn't take the gimmies. They didn't take the opportunities that were basically handed to them. I mean, the refs really did hand LSU some opportunities on a silver platter, and they just weren't able to capitalize off of it. So I'm not going to say that LSU lost that game more than Florida State won it because Florida State won it fair and square. I just think LSU took themselves out of this game, and against good teams like that, you're not going to win very many games in the SEC by doing that.
It's ironic that you mentioned that because right before the show, I happened to look at this thing called the LSU football schedule.
Yes, it's something that truly gives me nightmares.
And based on the secondary in particular and the inability of the offense to capitalize, you've got Mississippi State with an experienced quarterback, Arkansas with the future NFL quarterback, Mississippi State's maybe, A&M now can actually even throw the ball. I know Ole Miss is going to throw the ball. And you play in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot. How many losses over under for the Tigers?
Well, I think that I need to keep in mind the Mason Smith factor.
Oh, yeah. He's coming back. That's going to help.
Coming
Absolutely.
back, that's going to help up with the line of scrimmage. So I have to keep that in mind. The Harold Perkins experiment, the Harold Perkins development.
I have no
That's
idea
a
what to say
complete
to that.
X factor to me because glass half full me wants to look at it and say, well, now you've got some film, now you've got some tape, now you've got some experience. Let's come back next week against Grambling, get some confidence up, and then take on Mississippi State and get a lot of pressure on Will Rogers. But the glass half empty side of me thinks you had all off season to fix these issues, and you still looked how you looked as a first year head coach against Florida State last year. So that's kind of an X factor to me. How quickly can Harold Perkins come along in this new rule that for some reason feels, of utmost importance to do for this coaching staff. So I don't know. I mean, I would have told you between Mississippi State, Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Alabama preseason, I would have said there's one loss in there. Maybe two if we want to be incredibly pessimistic. But I would have looked at it and said you can go 3-1, beating Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and a loss at Bryant-Denny. And I can live with that. I can live losing on the road at Alabama against a good football team late in the season. I don't think that there is any excuse whatsoever to lose to those other three teams. Those are teams that LSU just simply beats. LSU beats Mississippi State. LSU beats Ole Miss, and LSU beats Arkansas. That's how it is. I mean, I know that there's weird fluky years in there, but if you look at the history of those teams,
Yep.
LSU wins those games, has won those games in history by a wide margin. There's no excuse, and there's just zero excuse to lose to those teams, especially in a year when you have so much talent, when you have so much experience, and you have so much leadership, to lose to those teams that you're simply supposed to be better than. So now that I'm looking at it, I mean, I think that if you go 2-2, you're probably counting your blessings in that stretch.
I said the over-under starts at 3. I think they could lose 4, and it's for the exact same reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking Alabama in that one, by the way. I'm sure that most fans will.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like Arkansas has a really good quarterback. Could they win a shootout? Possibly. Are they more talented than LSU? No, they're not. But if you play goofy and go 0-for-3 on fourth downs, you negate your own physical skill. So, yeah, I don't know. The only advantage I think to this is it's now LSU against the world because nobody believes them, even their own fans. That could be galvanizing.
It's like deja vu all over again.
Yeah.
Year after year after year after year. But silver lining. We talk about being, more talented than another team. LSU has more talent than Arkansas has. LSU has more talent than Mississippi State has. That is one thing for me that can make me sleep at night, is knowing that Florida State may have had more talent than LSU had on the field. And if at best, for LSU's sake, it was evenly matched. But I think that you can give the nod to Florida State just talent-wise. So that is what can make me feel a little bit more motivated and a little bit more optimistic about this team, is just given how much talent is on this team and how LSU can out-talent several teams in the SEC West. But from what you saw on Sunday night, do you think that Florida State, with the talent and with Mike Norvell's coaching, are they a college football playoff contender? Because I say yes.
I agree. I don't think they're quite where I would want them to be. They still have some issues, like the run at the end of the first half for LSU, the one play down the sideline on a pass. There's still some busts. And if you do that against the Georgia or something, like Johnny Wilson dropped 2, that can't happen.
In his hands.
Yeah, no, he catches the hard passes. He's a weird guy. But at the same time, when they play up to their capabilities, because their upper echelon players are truly elite, you can carry your team with, hey, on this play, you can have all these great players up front. Hike one step and throw it up. It's one-on-one, and Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson aren't going to lose a lot of those.
Right.
They have, in my opinion, the best 1-2 punch at receiver in the country, and they got a fifth-year senior quarterback. You combine those two things together with an offensive line that's got 200 starts, you're going to score points. They may not have a game this year, Care, where they score under 35. That's hard to do because everybody has a game they're off.
Right.
And they only had 14 at half. I mean, I'll just say this. We talked about this before the show. Name the last time LSU had a game where they lost and they gave up 31 consecutive points to the other team. I'm not sure that's happened in my lifetime. I just turned 50.
I have no idea. The one
That's what
game
I'm
that
saying.
maybe came to mind for me was that Mississippi State game in 2020, but 31 consecutive points.
I
I
don't think that's happened in my lifetime.
I wouldn't even know where to go for the last time that would have happened.
That's what I mean. Like, it was 17-14, and then it was
And
45
it
to
got
17.
really
They shouldn't
ugly.
even scored again. It was just a bust. They put a freshman in the game, and he got smoked. But LSU just didn't show up in the second half. So
Not at all.
I'm concerned that things could kind of fall off the wheels if they lose to Mississippi State or Arkansas, one of those teams right through there. I'm not sure how mentally strong they are. That is my biggest concern overall for LSU.
That's the key is, you go back, recap, get a confidence boost in a game against Grambling now that you're back at home. You got some film. But Mississippi State, I think, is going to be the big,
They can't lose that game,
they
Caroline.
cannot, they lose that game. And now we're talking about, can this team
Psychiatrists in
make a
your
bowl
state
game?
will be making so much money.
It's
LSU fans do not take losing very well, and I'm being so kind.
And I am not going to get this LSU team in trouble for something that they haven't done yet. You haven't lost to Mississippi State yet, but it's also how you look against those teams. If you're narrowly beating,
They can't win
Mississippi
20 to
State
17.
and the Arkansas, no, it's going to have to be perhaps a 45-24 blowout, hypothetically speaking. Wonder where I got that score from.
Well,
Uh,
the LSU fans need something. I've never seen a fan base turn like they did last night. I'm not going to mention the board that I went to, but the entertainment value was incredible. So,
yeah.
not for you, but
I'm glad
for
that
me.
you had fun. I for one was miserable, but hey,
Right.
we're a women's basketball school after all, so we've got that.
They are pretty damn good at that. They're pretty good at baseball too.
Well, Brian, I appreciate you. Thank you for allowing me to vent. I will be okay eventually, just not right now. But where can the people find your work and your breakdown of the game?
At FB Scout _Florida. And if you want to check out Locked On Seminoles, I'm sure you can find that too, but I highly doubt anybody's going to click on that. Everybody just
self-torture.
That's, if you want to. I mean, I got plenty of things on there that you're not going to like, but
yeah, I love you. I'm not going to watch.
Yeah, I know you're not, and you shouldn't. I want you to stay sane. Don't watch my show that I put on. Don't do it.
As sane as I possibly can this time of year.
Yeah.
But
I will give you some hope. They're still recruiting pretty well, and things are going well there. But on the field right now, I don't have much positive to say about Tigers.
From a recruiting standpoint, I think maybe what hurt the worst, the cut that was the deepest, Keon Coleman, Louisiana.
He's from Opelousas.
And he didn't get an offer from LSU. That is, the former regime still hurting this team. That hurts to see Louisiana kids bully up against their home state.
That kid is not that far away from where a certain head coach at LSU grew up.
Yeah.
Just going to let that ride.
Yeah. Yeah. And we will end it on there. Brian, you're the best. I appreciate you. We'll chat with you soon.
All right. Take care.
Well, thanks to Brian Smith for stopping by, being our official Seminole to kind of guide our thoughts and our feelings about the game on Sunday night, but also appreciate you for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. Coming up on tomorrow's episode, for all of my everydayers out there, Jaden Daniels. Let's talk about it. I've heard a whole lot of blame, a whole lot of finger pointing going to Jaden Daniels, and a whole lot of praise going to Jaden Daniels. Which is justified? We will break down Jaden Daniels' performance against Florida State on tomorrow's edition of Locked On LSU.